Hi guys, it's Cheyenne with Wisewood Apothecary. Thank you so much for joining me for the first month ever of the Herb of the Month Club. We studied Plantago major or Plantain for the whole month of July. I think I've changed a few people's minds about how valuable of a weed it is. So I just wanted to sum everything up for you that we've talked about before we move on to a new plant August 1st. Just some of the identifying features that are very important to know is that it is a basal leaf growing plant, which means that the leaves grow out of the base of the plant on the ground versus growing up the stalk of the plant. So that is one of the key identifying features. So it is always on the ground. And it has flower or seed stalks that are between 10 and 30 centimeters long. In various stages of seed maturity, or whether or not it's in pollinating or just beginning to flower. Every stage is technically edible. So just to remind you that when you look at a plantain leaf on the back, it should have these little threads that come up the back that show you that this is for sure plantain. And we will remember that these threads are super strong and can be used for all sorts of things, like making cordage, for stitching up a wound, so sutures, for tying your hair back, for temporarily stitching up clothing, all sorts of different things that we can use these fibers for. And so if we were to pull off this string, here we have the little fibers poking out. So that's what you want to use. And the bigger the leaf, the more mature the leaf is, the stronger and tougher the fibers are going to be. Got a plane going overhead, so excuse that. The perks of living in a city. So yeah, once we know for sure that we have plantain, no matter if they're little teeny tiny fresh leaves or big mature leaves like this, they are edible. This is one of my top 5 favorite greens to eat because it has such a nice flavor no matter what stage it's in. So if you want to, just as a review, if you want to eat these when they're mature like this, nice and tough leaves, you have to chop them up into little pieces or cook it like a pot herb. Saute it with some garlic and butter, maybe some thyme. It's really delicious. Or you can catch it when it's a little bit earlier in the season when you have the teeny tiny fresh budding leaves, and those ones are quite delicious on their own just to chew, or again you can cook it and yada yada yada. Remembering that the leaves do not preserve well dried, so you may lose some of the medicinal potency as it dries. So it's actually best to put it into an oil. So olive oil is usually the go-to, or into the freezer. So you can freeze it. You can blanch them first and freeze it, or just freeze them. And use them in smoothies and any way that you would use frozen spinach, or it's actually more like kale, I guess. So yeah, that's the key identifying features, is the threads through there, the big flower and seed stalks, and remembering that this is nicknamed the first aid plant for very good reason, and that is because for just about any first aid circumstance that you'd come across out in the wild, plantain can provide some assistance. So if you will remember, we went over 2 different poultices to make. So the regular poultice or the spit poultice, both can be made with the leaves, both can be applied to things like burns, bug bites, eczema, psoriasis, hives, all sorts of scrapes, cuts, wounds, bruising even, all sorts of things to try and help either draw out or move things along, like swelling and inflammation. Also remember that when you make plantain leaves and or seeds into a tea, it is great for helping to kind of lubricate the lungs and the intestines. So great for people with constipation, but not so great for people with bowel obstruction. So that is one of the contraindications, is do not use plantain if you have a bowel obstruction. You should be seeking better medical care than just a leaf. yeah, so without further ado, I will show you the plant out in the wild. So here we go. The wild being my backyard. Here is my mama plantain. This plantain has been with me for a few years now. It is very happy. It has given me seeds for all sorts of plantain in my yard. Now, some of you may know I got a puppy back in last November, so I cannot use the plantain on my garden bed or on my lawn anymore, so I have to use them out of my garden bed. So this one is growing in my garden bed amongst all my different plants, and it's happy as can be. So here are the flower and seed stalks that are quite long. These are in their seed stage, but they're not quite ready, so it'd be nice and brown when the seeds are ready. And remember that these often poke up through the snow, so as long as there's seeds present on there, it is edible. And I mean, watch for mildew or anything like that, but yeah, even in the snow, it is edible. So that's everything on plantain. Thank you so much for being a part of it all. I really appreciate all of the support and the feedback. It's awesome. I love to have your insight so I can know how to better curate it. This is our first go around with it, so I want to make it an annual thing, so the feedback is great. Yeah, so thanks so much. Have a great night and have fun exploring.